Hey guys, so today we're going to be taking a look at 6 of the most underrated champions in League right now. These are going to be champions that are secretly strong and can be effective in solo queue and even in competitive play. Now, these aren't really in any order, but we're going to be taking a look at Wukong first, seeing as he's probably the most popular on this list. So Wukong has always been strong, but never really clicked into the meta. Now he's got a great AoE ultimate, he's a strong early game which helps when trading or ganking, and he can snowball really hard. Now part of the reason he snowballs so hard is because he can just build damage and still be quite tanky as well. Now his passive and the defensive masteries now allow him to gain armor and magic resist for every nearby champion, meaning that he needs to purchase less defense than other champions. Well, to start with, he's pretty useless if he falls behind. His saving grace is that ultimate of his, but he needs items to really be effective. Now while he doesn't really need to build defense to be tanky, he's not going to be as tanky as other meta champions right now, meaning that he still doesn't really quite fit. Now we've seen quite a lot of play in the jungle recently, and while his clear speed is pretty pants, his ganks are good, and if he can get snowballing early then he can really carry a game by himself. Now in general though, he does have a few flaws as well. So because he relies on his ultimate so much, any sort of knockbacks that remove him from the fight really hurt his potential, and it's kind of dangerous to first pick him. So when you're playing Wukong top or mid lane, you want to try and trade with an auto attacking Q as much as possible. Now this will do a lot of damage, and you can even use your W to back out or soak more damage and then go back in afterwards. The meta right now is a lot about farming kind of AFK for a while, but with Wukong you want to be trying to force as much as possible. So your real strength is how much AoE damage and control you have, and that's going to be how you'll win games. Now when you're jungling, you want to focus on ganking more than farming. As I said earlier, his clear speed is not that good, so you want to be trying to get your gold from kills and objectives instead. Now when you do actually gank, you want to use your W from the Fog of War, and it's going to let you get that just a little bit closer before the enemy sees you, giving them less chance to react. Now Wukong is also not the greatest dueler, so if it comes down to both laners and both junglers fighting it out, you're probably going to lose that 2v2 in most cases. So next up we have Cassiopeia, and I honestly think she's probably one of the most underrated champions here because of how hard she is to play. Now she has a lot of natural damage, allowing her to build more utility tank and not just pure damage, and become really hard to kill as well. Now to top off her amazing damage and great lane phase, after level 6 it's really risky to gank her because she can just easily turn it around with her ultimate and kill you instead. Now there are a few reasons why she isn't picked that much, but first off is because any good jungler is going to camp the crap out of you pre-6. You have no escape, you'll probably be pushing the lane with your Q, and you're designed to be a lane bully, so you're asking for trouble. The other reason is purely because she's just so hard to play. You can be really fed, but honestly have no impact in the game if you miss position or mess up your combo, and that kind of risk isn't really needed when you can pick other mid champions and do only slightly less damage. Now saying that though, I really think that a good Cassiopeia player is extremely scary and can probably carry the game on her own. So when you're laning as Cass, you want to harass with your Q as much as possible, and the easiest way of doing this is launching your Q as they come to CS. Now either your opponent misses this CS to dodge the Q, or more likely they're going to eat that Q to get the CS. Now Cass is a really strong laner, but try to avoid chasing the enemy with your Q and E unless you can see their jungler. Now I already mentioned that the jungler will be looking to gank you, and going aggressive is a sure way to get his attention. So when you do end up team fighting, you want to stay at the back, you have no escapes, and it's really hard to output your damage when you're being jumped on, so you kind of want to bait your team a little bit to win. Now I do just want to mention that chances are when you first play Cash you will do no damage and you will really suck. Now she's probably the only champion that I actually can't play, but if you put in the time to learning her then it will definitely be worth it. So next up let's look at Zilean, and I actually think he's probably one of the best counters to support Annie. I'm going to be talking about using him more as a support here, but mid lane can definitely work too. Now he actually deals a lot of damage, he counters assassins or burst champions by reviving their target, and his ultimate keeps him relevant throughout the game. The reason I think he is underrated right now is because a lot of the popular champions right now are all burst related, and if you can revive someone after they've eaten the enemy's cooldowns, then you stand a much bigger chance of winning that fight. So why isn't he used as a support or mid laner more? Well, to start with, he's pretty easy to kill, and he does struggle when he gets set behind. His damage falls off really hard late game, and he doesn't really snowball either, so you kind of rely on getting ahead and then helping your team to carry. Now his major weakness is stuns or CC that prevents him from using his ultimate. His ultimate is the reason you pick Zilean, and if you can take that away from him then he suddenly becomes redundant in a fight. His damage is also very cooldown based, so when his Q is on cooldown then he really can't do anything, and so if you pressure him after he's used it then he has no choice but to run away. When you're playing as Zilean, you want to Q, W to lower your cooldowns, and Q again, meaning you're going to double bomb the target. This is great poke, but while this is on cooldown you do have to be careful they don't engage. Now in teamfights, try to save your ult for the damage sources and not tanks. Now it's not the worst thing ever to use your ult on a tank, but it just means that he'll revive to soak more damage rather than to deal it. Now your E is also seriously underrated and is one of the reasons why it's such a good pick against Nasus. Now Nasus struggles when he's being kited, and with some CDR you can keep your E on him pretty much constantly, making it impossible for him to do any damage. Just to explain why he counters Annie so hard as well. So his Q is a range of 700, higher than anything Annie has, meaning that he can bomb and take no damage in return. Her ultimate also negates her full combo, as you're just going to revive after she's used all of her cooldowns, and it kind of stops her getting ahead in lane. So next up we have Veigar or Veigar, and he can actually be played as either a mid laner or a support. Now Veigar's cage at max rank has a 2.5 second stun, which is absolutely crazy, and it can turn fights on its own. He does a ton of damage, he's built to delete people from fights, and the scary part is that because of his Q, he will eventually reach a point where he can one-shot anyone on your team. So if he has the potential to kill anyone, then why isn't he played more? Well, first off, positioning on Veigar is really important, and it's really easy to mess it up, making him somewhat difficult to play. His cage is not the easiest thing to hit either, and it does have a pretty long ramp up time before it starts to dominate. The real reason though is because there are just champions that pretty much do his job but better right now, like Syndra or Ahri, and they're also easier to play. So when you're playing against Veigar, he becomes really weak once his cage is on cooldown, so if you can dodge that then he has nothing to stop you bullying him. Any sort of crowd control or lockdown also really hurts him, as it won't take long to kill him if you can actually catch him first. Now when you're playing as Veigar, you want to focus on farming with your Q and only really harass if you can go in for a kill. At 6 this really isn't that hard to do either. You just want to poke them down with a few Qs to start, cage them, and then unleash your load all over them. In general, it's also best to save your E to escape ganks, as that's the only way you have to escape. I will quickly mention support Veigar too, and why I think it's a good pick. So a 2.5 second stun is unreal, and it's more than enough time to get an advantage in a trade, forcing them to run away after it's done. You still do pretty good damage as well, but it's honestly just that stun, it's just insane. So probably the most underrated champion for a long time has been Swain. Now this is one of the picks on here that it's kind of pretty hard to actually explain why he's underrated, as he's a very good laner, he has a great team fight, he reaches a point where he becomes unkillable, and he counters a lot of the popular champions right now. The main drawbacks to Swain are just that he takes quite a long time to really ramp up and start dominating the game, and I think it appears like he does a lot less damage than he actually does. All of his damage is sustained, meaning that it takes him a while to kill someone, but it's also impossible to kill him while he's doing it. Now getting a Zhonya's on him is also the most frustrating thing for your enemies. Oh, you've almost killed me? Well, let me just turn golden and heal back to full health. Now when you're playing as Swain, you want to auto attack as much as possible and use your E whenever it's off cooldown. You don't have a huge amount of kill potential early unless you land your root, but you can bully your opponent out of lane over and over again. Now your passive also means that even though you are really mana hungry and you do have mana problems, you can manage your mana in lane and always have enough to trade. Now saying that, it's generally not a good idea to use your ultimate unless you really have to, as that is what will make you go out of mana really quickly. Now this is one of Swain's biggest weaknesses early, and that is getting pushed into turret. You're really bad at last hitting under turret because you have no abilities to help you, and there isn't much you can do to keep it off your turret either. So last up we have Trundle, and Trundle is a perfect counter to the tank health stacking meta right now, as he steals 40% of the target's armor and magic resist and does percentage health damage on top. Now this combination means that it's practically impossible to duel him, and it makes him a great choice to shut down someone like a Mundo or Shyvana. Now I'm not going to go into huge detail in this video about how it works, as this is only an overview, but if you're interested in finding out more, you can check out my buddy Shakarez's video, which will be down below in the description. So the reason he isn't picked more is kind of a combination of a few things. Now first off, this really tanky meta is pretty new, and so people haven't really adapted to it yet, and there hasn't been any LCS for people to see what the pros are doing either. Now secondly, he doesn't really deal that much damage on his own, so he's not really good at shutting down the enemy AD as he is shutting down the enemy top laner. Now this really leads on to the problem that he does a lot of sustained damage rather than burst, so he doesn't really have much snowball potential as other top laners. Sure, he can shut down the enemy laner pretty well, but he's unlikely to carry the whole game. Now when you are laning as Trundle, you want to try and trade with an auto attack and Q as much as possible, and this is eventually going to get you control of the lane. Pillar is also a great way to avoid incoming ganks or trap the enemy laner if your jungler is ganking. Your W is surprisingly good, but it will make you run out of mana quite quickly, so you only want to use it when you're looking to trade for a long period of time, and don't just use it when you're going to use one Q. So there you have it, these are my 6 most underrated champions, but there are a lot more that could have been on this list. Morgana could have easily made it, she's really good at the moment. Victor is another mid champion that is quite hard to play but does a crazy amount of damage. Now Poppy is surprisingly good right now as well, and the list goes on as you can see on the screen. So let me know what champions you think are better than people give them credit for below, and I'll catch you next time.